Thank you, everybody, for joining us back here at Nubeva's channel. We're sitting here once again with Randy. And Randy, there's been a lot going on in the world and with Nubeva lately. How have you been holding up over there?
Great, fantastic. I think the weather's been great. I think everybody around me seems to be getting COVID again, but knock on wood, I have not yet. So
Oh
hopefully
boy.
not.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Knock on wood. Hopefully we don't get it
yeah.
here in Ohio either.
Oh,
But the
yep.
weather is summer is coming to an end, heading into fall, and usually we see do see a bit of a spike up there. But let's turn things to something a little more positive, Randy. So there's been some interesting updates with you guys, with your guys' flagship client, one of these top 10 institutions. Can you tell us more about what's been going on?
Absolutely. This is our one of the largest financial institutions in the world, which we've talked about in the past. I think the product, as we shared in our previous recordings, the product rollout is going extremely well. We're very responsive to the requests, and they're very happy with that. We have no open tickets.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we received notice from them on the fact that their CISO and CIO and the entire IT group was asked to present directly to their CEO of the entire company, and
Oh.
that was received extremely well. And so, as I've mentioned before, what we're trying to do is build out these lighthouse accounts inside different verticals.
Mhm.
And ultimately, we want to make sure that word of mouth goes through, right? There's no better endorsement than having a happy CISO and a happy CIO. We sell to both of them, talking to their friends and peers and letting them understand how things are going well. And that has to be all top down. We're talking about all the way from the very, very top when they want to be telling their peers the fact that when they present to the board and the CEO and the executive team that it's well received. Obviously, the CEO wants the shareholders to uh, think about that and be receptive of what they're doing. And at the same time, obviously, that has to start with a product being rolled out and working out well. They've done, I think we've talked about this. They've done a pen test in the past, a third-party pen test of which we're trying to get. We will be getting that, obviously, with their name and specific information removed. The fact that this is a pen test hired by the customer, run by and then a third party that they validated, saying the product works well, that there's no vulnerabilities, et cetera, et cetera. I think that has to work out from every single level of the organization. You simply cannot have a single part of the organization go out and raise their little red flag and say, "Hey, I vetoed this," or "I'm concerned about this. If something goes wrong, it's your neck." Right? Everybody needs to be on the same page, and that's it's going extremely well from that perspective. So.
Great. And yeah, this was your strategy in the first place of going for one of these institutions and making them happy. And the implications, obviously, of having a positive reputation with them and that spreading is fantastic for Nubeva.
Right. Absolutely.
And another thing that's been happening, Randy, talk to me about this Crowdstrike Fallout and what's all been going on
Yes.
there and the implications of that for Nubeva.
Absolutely. So just as a background, obviously, I'm sure everybody's heard about the CrowdStrike event. CrowdStrike has been exceptionally successful in the last decade or so. Before that, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, if you went out and said, "Hey, I'm going to install a client software on your laptops, on your desktops, on your servers," that used to always be a no-no, no endpoint desktop. And CrowdStrike was able to turn that around and essentially create the endpoint market, the EDR market, by saying, "Hey, we will install it there. It's going to work and it's going to be reliable." And so for the longest time, the entire world went from you use any acronym you want, but endpoint, network, et cetera, cloud-based detection mechanisms to find out anomalies. And CrowdStrike was able to turn that and say, well, no, we're going to do it directly from the endpoint. Well, obviously, as soon as they crashed the way they crashed, it doesn't matter whose fault or how it went.
Mhm.
Everybody that said 15 years ago, "Hey, you don't install things in the endpoint, you don't do complicated things in the endpoint, etc." Well, that's all flipping over, right? So,
Mhm.
so everything based on network security, etc., is all making a huge comeback because of that one event. And so, in our case, if you look at both the ransomware offering that we're offering today and the TLS offering that we had before, it was always about having something very small, just did one thing and retrieve information so you can use that information to do other things. So beforehand, when we did TLS, well, we were getting the encryption keys for the TLS, and you can decrypt the data from another, validated device, and from that, decide, hey, is this good? Is this bad? Is this something it's not good nor bad, but it's not something my corporation wants to see, or perhaps it's somebody's social security number, et cetera, et cetera. You could do significantly more analysis outside of the endpoint itself.
Mhm.
Okay, so everything about Nubeva is doing the bare minimum on what we need to do at the endpoint, extract the keys and allow other people to act on them. So you may recall, everybody asked us, are we able to, for example, when we see ransomware keys, well, can we stop the ransomware? Why don't you just go, we talked about that for forever.
Mhm.
And the reason is the complexity in doing so and the counter movements that a threat actor can do, it just can, it's just never going to end. And so the more complex things you do in the endpoint, well, the less reliable you become, or that's just common sense from a risk standpoint. And so we've always done the bare minimum to extract the keys. That's all we do. And then everybody else can use that information, right? So if files are getting encrypted, well, you can process that understanding and the action of what you're going to do. Are you going to isolate that endpoint? Are you going to monitor? Are you obviously going to raise all sorts of alerts, tell people something bad is happening, etc. That can all happen at the network layer or at the cloud layer. It doesn't need to happen in the endpoint. And so this is something that I've received calls from partnering and M&A groups from companies worth 20, $30 billion in market cap reaching out to us again because they're seeing that approach is the better approach. And obviously from what happened with CrowdStrike, that's something that they want to engage in. So
Interesting. A change in the meta strategy overall is happening then.
yes.
Cool. And I guess let's also talk about you guys have your patents have been progressing with the AI stuff. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yes. So as a strategy, as you know, we're trying to make sure that there's a support mechanism from an AI standpoint is there so that we don't handle what I call emergency services.
Mhm.
At the same time, we have been adding AI capability into the product itself so we can do more intelligent things and allow other products to do more intelligent things. And one of the things that has come from that is the fact that Facebook released Llama 3.1. That's just been game changing at the AI level for vendors like us, where we can't have network connectivity to say a ChatGPT 4 or at the network layer. We need to be able to function in an isolated manner
Mhm.
and process what's going on, whether it's pre-process, post-process, or process at the same time, running Llama 3.1 and understanding exactly what's happening, not just inside what we do, which is recovering the keys from ransomware, but at the same time, understanding everything that correlates with that. And so having Llama 3.1 embedded into the technology from a pre or post process standpoint in our decryptors, et cetera, has been absolutely game changing. And so we've now realized several different things that we can do with that information. For example, how can we, if a customer has 40, 50,000 endpoints that has been encrypted, how do you go about approaching that, right? Which machines do you go about recovering first? Obviously, there's an importance and priority based on what the customer views as being important. But at the same time, once you do that, you still have to decide, hey, is it safe to recover half these machines being cleaned? And are they indeed absolutely cleaned? And can I start recovering? Or did you just recover the ransomware again and then run the ransomware again? Right, kind of a thing. And so having a level of intelligence instead of having people manually do that and inspect that is absolutely game changing. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, Llama came on the scene a while ago, and it's definitely been one that, as you mentioned, people actually being able to take it and install it themselves. Is it true that when that first came out, it was essentially a GitHub leak where someone requested it, and one of the developers just gave them access? Like it wasn't supposed to leak at first. Did you hear about that?
I did not. You're probably at the forefront of that. Remember, you're the one that introduced ChatGPT to us, to me and to us. So I don't know that. I think prior to Yama, I'd say 3,
Mhm.
it wasn't that usable for us. It really wasn't accurate enough and intelligent enough that was offering anything. I mean, 3.1 is absolutely game changing. For what we do, you can devise questions so that the quality of the answers is indistinguishable to us from
Wow.
ChatGPT 4.
Wow.
That's not to say that it's equivalent product. I'm certainly not doing that. But uh, remember, what we do, and what we ask has a very, very limited scope. And so, from that perspective, we can design the questions to be very, very specific And so from that perspective, Yama 3.1 absolutely is very accurate in answering what we need. So
Wonderful. Yeah, great to hear it. If anyone wants to fact check me on that, feel free to. But Randy, here, kind of diving into the last thing, you had a question coming in from a shareholder related to these Australian tax rebates. Can you kind of
yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, since the beginning of since we incorporated, we've always had a presence in Australia. And what that allowed us to do is to receive 43.5% tax rebate from within Australia. Okay, so what that means is whether we make the revenue or not, as long as we spent a certain amount, for every $100 that we spent inside Australia, 43.5 come back, or the tax and the government pays us. Obviously, we still need accounting to process that, et cetera. And so what we typically net is somewhere around 38 or 39% of that. Okay, and so we still do that. As a reminder, 100% of all our cloud costs, which is for the most part compute costs, which is for the most part AWS and Azure. There's some other clouds that we do certain things that we have to, but most, I'd say easily 97, 98%, if not more, of all our cloud costs and compute costs comes from AWS and Azure. That's 100% done out of Australia. And so for every $100 or $98 that we spend inside cloud or compute, we are receiving back somewhere around $40 of what we just spent every single year. So,
Wow.
and we continue doing that, and we intend to continue doing it. So, good question.
Perfect. Well, thank you for answering the question, Randy, and thank you to the shareholder who had asked it. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you guys have any. Randy, thank you for all the updates. Is there anything else you want to add
Thank
before
you.
we go?
Nope, that's all I had.
Perfect.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Randy, for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned for more. Cheers.